my opinion, the crash was caused by the decision of Senna that something was strange in his driving wheel. Because the driving wheel was moving too much.
One of the problems in Senna's crash is time. In order to make a decision, there are steps that have to be followed. You realize that you need to take action, you gather relevant information, you identify the alternatives, you weight your evidence, you choose among the alternatives and you take action. According to telemetry, Senna's reaction time was 0.2 seconds, which is extremely small for decision making. It would make more sense if Senna was already aware that something was wrong before even he entered Tamburello. In this case, retiring the car would have been a possible scenario in his mind, and that would explain going full on the brakes so fast. But this requires that the car had problems earlier, perhaps as early as lap 6. In previous videos we managed to show that the steering column was severely damaged in Acqua Minerale, lap 6. From that moment the steering wheel will show abnormal movement, which was getting worse over time. Senna had 60 seconds to realize that something was wrong with his steering and decide whether he should retire the car or not. So the question remains: did Senna know? To find out, we must go back in time and re-examine the same onboard video. 25 seconds before the crash, we are on the end of the straight before Rivazza. Senna's steering column is flexing. What we are looking for is clues that Senna was aware that something is not well. Senna checked his steering wheel 3 times in less than 25 seconds. He checks his steering wheel at the exit of Rivazza. He checks it again at the exit of Variante Bassa. The last check was before Tamburello. In fact, it was a final glimpse, to make sure if he should keep pushing or not. It was his last chance to retire the car.
So he realized that something strange was on. And so he decided to stop the car. If you are all in your driving in your car and you feel that your driving wheel is moving, what you believe that something is broken, and what you do, you stop the car.
One may ask, why didn't Senna stop the car earlier? How could an experienced driver fail to recognize the seriousness of the situation? Unfortunately, Senna is the only one who could answer these questions. In our point of view, there are 3 possible scenarios. Scenario number 1. Senna realizes that something is wrong with the steering, but unsure about the extent of the problem, he decides to give it some time. Don't forget, Senna had been under extreme pressure during that weekend. He already had 2 retirements in the championship, while his main rival had 2 victories. An Austrian flag was found inside his cockpit, which tells us Senna planned to devote his win to Roland Ratzenberger, who died the day before. In any case, Senna was determined to win. He was known for taking risks, and he wouldn't retire the car unless he had a good reason to do so. Scenario number 2. During the trial we learnt that Senna had requested some modifications on the position of his steering wheel. These modifications were performed hastily during the weekend at Imola.
When they
In fact, Senna knew he was going to race for the first time with a different steering column, which hasn't even been tested. When the steering column started flexing, Senna got confused because he couldn't tell whether it was normal or it was a sign of failure. That would explain why he was constantly checking his cockpit the last 30 seconds before the crash. Unfortunately for him, when the steering failed, there was not much he could do to save himself. The evening before the trial, Patrick Head came up to me and said, "Just to let you know that as far as I am concerned, you were the chief designer and responsible for the design of the car, and therefore you have to take responsibility for this. I could say actually you shouldn't be charging me. You should be charging the head of the design office and the design draftsman. It has nothing to do with me, I never saw the design." The third scenario involves the team. Senna notices his steering wheel is trembling and contacts his mechanics on the radio. Either he was told that they did not have good reason to retire the car, or he never got feedback because he had already crashed. The first time Senna appears to acknowledge that something is wrong is after the exit of Rivazza. This means that a radio contact couldn't have occurred earlier than the end of lap 6. With almost 15 seconds remaining until crash, it is possible that the team did not have enough time to reach Senna. Did Senna take a risk? Did he fail to recognize the extent of the problem? Or perhaps he died because his team told him to keep pushing. We may never know, but can only be sure for one thing. Senna wouldn't be checking his steering wheel 3 times before his crash unless he was trying to understand something on the car.